Welcome back to Vikes with the Mike. Oh my God, I am so fired up. As always, your host, JC, here with my boy, my co-host, my good pal, Tyler Williams. As always, we are coming to you on
Good day
Monday.
today, huh?
Yeah, it's an amazing day. It is Black Monday. I want to make myself very clear. I'm not celebrating the firing of the people. I'm celebrating the opening of two spots in our organization. Thank you to Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman for all that they brought. Obviously, you know, Zim over the last 8 years being our head coach, and Spielman's been with us for 16, I believe, in the front office. So thank you to what they have brought this organization, and they've kept us competitive for sure. But this is a league in which you got to get stuff done. So the day after the Vikings get a dub over the Chicago Bears and finish the season 8-9, Black Monday comes, and the Vikings shockingly decide to part ways with not only Coach Mike Zimmer, which a lot of people saw coming, but also GM Rick Spielman, who not a lot of people, but some reports had come out saying that he was maybe just going to be reassigned to somewhere else within the organization. They are both gone, so no ties left to the organization. We're going in a completely different direction. How are you feeling, Tyler?
How am I feeling? I'm feeling great. I think it's time. Both these guys, like you said, brought a lot to this organization. I'm proud of what they've done, but in the end, it's a business, and they didn't get to the ultimate goal, and that's winning a Super Bowl. I loved what on Twitter, what the Twitter account tweeted about the statements made about it, saying that time to bring this city, these fans, a championship. These Vikings fans, we've been here since forever. This is one of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL, and I feel like the owners are trying to deliver us something special. And I think it's very due. Vikings fans need this, and with Zimmer and Spielman at the helm, we weren't going to get it done. So you got to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is no doubt in anybody's minds that the Wilfs are some of, if not the best owners in the National Football League. They might not have the championships to show for it yet, but I do believe that the way that they care about this team and have shown that they will support anything that brings them closer to getting those championships, it's going to pay off. It's got to, sooner rather than later. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So very, very exciting. A new era of Vikings football begins today, while the old one has died, and we are thankful for the memories that came with it. You got to be excited. You got to look forward to it. There's a reason they call the NFL more than just the National Football League. It also stands for not for long. And quite honestly, these two gentlemen, and Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer, got a while when it comes to the NFL to get the job done. And as you stated in our owners' kind of press statement, they made a point of mentioning that they want to constantly contend for championships, and that's what they're going to plan to do by putting together this next staff in the front office and the coaching staff. But to Zim and to Rick's credit, they also, in their statements, apologized for not being able to get it done and understand that this is an organization that deserves championships and is potentially, only however many moves away from getting there. So with that, the thank yous are out of the way.
Yep.
Let's deal with real quick. Let's just briefly discuss the game yesterday. It had no impact on where the Vikings were going to finish, really, except for draft position whatsoever. We already had second place in the division locked up. So no matter win or lose, we were going to be facing the same opponents next year. I believe instead of picking 10th because we beat the Bears yesterday,
we're up to 12 now.
We're up to 12, exactly.
But I'm fine with that. It's not that bad. I'm going to be honest. You can still get a really good player at 12. A lot of good talent right in that spot. I mean, that's where Rashawn Slater, I think, went last year, and we know how good that guy is right now.
So I think that mathematically speaking, there was a worry that they could have went up maybe a total of like 4 spots at one point or something like that. I haven't seen the exact numbers, but just depending on how other games had ended, if we had won and other teams had maybe lost or won, that's how far we could have fallen. But we also could have gotten up to 10, I believe, was the highest if we had lost this game. So yeah, basically, if in the end, the way the chips fell, you're only losing 2 slots.
Yep.
I'm really not nearly as worried about it. And again, it's not like it was going to change as far as like who we're playing next year. So strength of schedule is still going to be what it was going to be for next year. So with that being said, your Vikings win 31-17. Again, last game for Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman in their respective spots in the organization. The Vikings didn't look very great in the first half.
Yeah, that was
offense was abysmal. Honestly, defense wasn't that great either. Andy Dalton started this game for the Bears. He looked pretty decent. I mean, he had some interceptions thrown that were not
all in the second half. Yeah,
right. But overall, I don't know. There's not much I have to say about this game, to be completely honest.
You know what's crazy? He threw the ball 48 times. I just realized that on the stat sheet. That's crazy. I mean, they were trailing by a lot in the second half, but I didn't expect him throwing 48 passes. I didn't really, when watching the game, I didn't really notice him throwing 48, dropping back 48 times. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they still gave the ball to Montgomery 20 times, which yet again is like,
that tells me they had a lot of plays.
Well, yeah, but it also kind of speaks to, at least in my mind, just how bad of a coach Matt Nagy was. And by the way, he
got canned as well.
We're both canned as well. But like this defense was so trash when it comes to stopping the run consistently throughout the year. And then us also not having Eric Kendricks playing this game due to COVID. I was really surprised that they didn't stick with the run. This was a game that the Bears could have easily tried to win more. They knew that they weren't going to have Justin Fields because of COVID. They knew that Andy Dalton was going to be the starter. I don't know. I was just a little surprised that they only gave it to him with the amount of plays that they had and the opportunities that they had. I was surprised that David Montgomery only got 20 carries.
There was a lot of sequences where they could have had a lot of field goals, but they instead tried to go for it. And we actually stopped them quite a bit on 4th down, I believe, in this game. So, I mean, they could have put up more points.
3 or something like that.
Yeah. Honestly, the first half, they kept getting into our territory basically every time due to the field position. They kept getting good returns, just bad punts. I mean, this was not a clean game for this team specifically in the first half. The Bears were kind of stepping on our throat a little bit, but, we got lucky that they were playing aggressive due to them not really playing for much. So I guess that helped, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, neither team here, I think, when it comes down to it, really cared. I think that a lot of the guys on the Vikings, to be completely honest with you, really saw the writing on the walls. And especially after halftime, I have a feeling that Zimmer probably said something to the extent of, this is going to be the last time I'm
on the
field with you guys. Yep. So please just go out there and fight for me. And I think that's honestly why the look of this team changed after halftime. They came out and they were firing on what seemed to be all cylinders basically at that point. Quite honestly, if this is the last game in which we saw Anthony Barr, I'm okay with that. If this is the last game that we saw Kirk Cousins in purple, I'm okay with that. And then there's some other guys too that I think that may go for as well, but those are probably the 2 biggest names as far as players that we potentially might not see on the roster next year that played in this game specifically. So yeah, you're basically, in the end, the biggest takeaway I think from this game is, again, it moves you back 2 spots in the draft because you get the dub, but you send out Zimmer and Spielman on, I guess, a high note in a way, as far as, the NFL goes, because every win is earned. And yeah, so enough of that. quite honestly, I mean, unless there's stuff that you want to talk about when it comes to this game, I think it just mattered so little in the grand scheme of things that it'd be much more interesting to get into the possibilities that are happening with our organization right now.
Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to bring up two players specifically on defense that I thought had great games. I thought Patrick Peterson looked great. That 66-yard pick six that he had was awesome at the end of the game. I really enjoyed watching that, especially how the Bears team basically just gave up trying to tackle him.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I don't know what that was about, but hey, man, pick six. I'll gladly take it.
Absolutely.
For P2. The man's an absolute unit. And honestly, I'm really impressed with Kenny Willekes right now at defensive end. The explosiveness he's playing with. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I mean, that dude has got no quit in him, man. I don't know how he didn't make the 53. I'm gonna be honest with you. He's 2 sacks recorded in this game. He was all over Andy Dalton. The Bears kept holding him too, which is hilarious. The freaking tackles had no solution to stopping this man.
For sure.
I'm excited. Yeah. Hopefully, be on the roster next year, man. That's a guy you should definitely want to keep if you're the Vikings.
I 1,000% agree. I think that both those guys really showed up. I would absolutely love for whoever comes in here to take a look at Pat Pete and really ask him if he'd be willing to sign like a 2-year, very cap-friendly deal with this team and finish out his career in purple. Because God, I love what he brings as far as leadership. And I our cornerback room is going to be thin. We're going to lose some guys. More than likely, I would say, this offseason, and we're going to have quite a bit of youth going into next season. Expect that to be a position in which we kind of attack not only in free agency, but in the draft pretty heavily.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically, I think keeping number 7 in purple was something that still gives you flexibility in the cap would be huge if he would take something like that. And then one other player that I do want to mention as well is Justin Jefferson before we completely move off the game.
Yep.
He came close to breaking that record. Obviously Randy got that record in 16 games and JJ didn't end up getting it. Zim was very adamant that he knew where JJ was in
okay.
As far as the numbers when it came to getting him that record, and he made it very clear that he didn't really care about that. I think JJ did, but I really hope that the fact that he didn't get it in such a would have been, let's be honest, a lame way to get.
You could put an asterisk on it, to be honest.
Right, you have to put an asterisk on it, not only because it's 17 games, but also because it was a absolutely meaningless game. I think it would be really, really cool if JJ broke it next year or something, and we were looking at a even more competitive Vikings team.
Yeah,
that would be really, really fantastic. I would love that, obviously, way more. And I think JJ would get a kick out of that way more, to be completely honest. Because in the end, if you're an NFL player at his level, all you care about at the end of the day is winning games. It doesn't really matter about your personal stats. So just had to throw that out there. JJ is our franchise player. He's the guy that you got to continue to build around.
Yep.
He's turning into the face of this franchise, and I love it. And I really hope that is taken into massive account when this team moves forward in their decisions. So with that, Tyler, one last time, do you have anything else to say about this game?
No, I love, you said that perfectly about JJ. I'm so excited for the future with this guy. He's a phenomenal player, man. And I love his comment too about about him the last 2 years being like, what did I learn about myself? I'm just a good football player.
Right.
That was great.
Yeah, I guess I'm good at what I do.
You can just tell the guy just wants to go out there and win football games. He doesn't care about the stat sheet.
As he should, man. As he should. Yeah. So in the end, not the way that we wanted this season to end. Obviously, it ends here. No playoffs for us. But from a Vikes to the Mike standpoint, we're starting the offseason talk, and it is already juicy, fun. I'm so stoked for it. For those of you who listen regularly, I do want to get this out of the way right now. Don't expect nearly as frequent episodes from us as they have been. Obviously, now that the Vikings are out of contention, we'll probably only be coming to you when there's big enough news to report about. I'm sure we'll talk about maybe like the Super Bowl and NFL honors or whatever when it gets to that time, but
right,
probably won't be hardcore covering the playoffs as far as these next
Right.
couple weeks. So, that being said, there is news. I mean, there's a reason that we're pumping this thing out early, a day early. Not only because there isn't a game tonight, so we don't have to worry about waiting for the Monday Night Football game, but also because it's time for speculation. Who do we want as the next Vikings GM and head coach? Who do we want on the staff? What are we looking for here, Tyler? I know that I have my answers. I have a couple guys that are really high on my list. I know that the situation is super interesting. So, for everybody listening, we'll just kind of break down what's going to happen here. We're going to go into some guys that we want to see get these jobs and why. And then, if you need to explain a couple moves that you want them to make or specific reasons why you see them as great fits in Minnesota, then we'll get into that. Not going to get too into the weeds. Don't want to take too much from other episodes maybe, but definitely going to give some first reactions here. So before we get into it, I do also want to say that the Vikings are not hiring an outside committee. They are doing an internal search, let's call it, for the next GM, followed by the head coach. So the GM spot will be first position addressed, and then he will have, or she will have say in who the head coach is as well. So with that, Tyler, I'm sure you got names for me, buddy.
What do you want first though? Do you want
GM? Let's go in. Let's go.
Probably because that's going to be first on the agenda for this team most likely. It's going to be GM, and then the GM's going to probably pick out this next coach. So
correct. Yes. So let's get into the GMs here. What are you feeling as far as potential GMs that could?
Have you heard of the name of Jamal Stevenson by chance?
Sounds quite familiar.
Current co-director of player personnel for the Minnesota Vikings. He's been with the team for 20 years in the Viking scouting department. He stepped into George Payton's role just this past year, after George Payton went to the Broncos as the assistant GM, and he's worked with Spielman a lot these last couple of years. So if you're going to stay in-house, that's my number one candidate for in-house moves. I think this guy, a guy who's been with this team for over 20 years, is who's kept moving in the right way.
I don't hate that. I think that a better maybe in-person name could be somebody. Well, I shouldn't say better. I think another in-person name could be somebody like a Rob Brzezinski, who I know you and I have talked about a couple times. Brzezinski's obviously the cap god of this team. You'll see memes about him all over Twitter anytime the Vikings somehow find a way to sign a guy. But anyways, continue on
that's why I said I knew Rob Brzezinski was going to be on your list, so I wasn't going to take your shine away, to be honest with you.
I appreciate it.
I'm just throwing out another in-house name for you.
Right. No, and I love it, and that's exactly what I said. I think that that Stevenson and Brzezinski are probably your two top guys as far as in-house options. I don't think the Vikings are going to go in-house. I've already seen some reports by local media.
Honestly, which is fine with me. I wanted to throw out an in-house name, to be honest with you.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yes.
Just to throw it out there.
Yeah. What about maybe your top out of house name? Or two. I got two, so if you want to say
honestly, okay. No particular order, but I would probably I honestly throw Louis Riddick on this list. I think he would be I think Louis Riddick's a guy who would be kind of interesting. He's been out of the league for a while, but he's done some good things with some good teams in the past. I think he's been out for 8 years. I've been seeing him a lot, not so like Vikings, but other teams maybe. I think that could be a guy the Vikings should maybe look into. And then another guy is Will McClay from Dallas. I've been hearing rumors about him with the Cowboys. And, I've heard nothing but good things. Teams have been trying to snatch him apparently. And he's been with Dallas for a while, and that they've had some good culture teams in the past. So I think those are two big out-of-house kind of names that the Vikings should be looking into.
I am so happy that you said Will McClay because when I'm trying to like get down to two, he was one of the ones that I had like even Steven with another guy that'll get in here. But I probably was gonna let his name slide and go with the other guy. So the fact that you brought him up is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter kind of describe him as our former like George Patton kind of type guy.
Man, if George Patton wouldn't have left, man, I think that would have been your hire, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it would have been huge.
Man.
I think that would have been really, really great. But obviously, what's done is done. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Will McClay one is really interesting to me just because of what he's done in Dallas, some of the drafts that he's kind of seen, and then obviously some of the free agents that Dallas continues to bring in. Now, Jerry Jones, he's obviously owner and GM, so you have to give a certain amount of that credit to him. But the fact that Will McClay has been around for so long and he's been interviewed but never been completely poached from another team tells you that his name isn't getting stained by any.
That tells me that he's been doing a lot of work just behind the scenes. I don't think Jerry Jones at this age is doing that much work with the staff department. Yeah, he's under as a GM because of the fame around the Dallas Cowboys. Don't get it twisted, people. He's not really doing all the work behind the scenes, scouting these guys out. Come on. So I really think this dude probably is. Yeah, he's helping scouting these dudes, and mostly picking the players. If I'm being quite honest with you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So, for me personally, we already kind of talked about Brzezinski when you brought up Stevenson there for a second. I don't really have anything to add about him, but my two out-of-house guys that would be probably the biggest names to watch, in my opinion, or guys that I would love to see take over here would be Ed Dobbs. He is the Colts assistant general manager.
I've heard that name. I like that too. Yes, they've built a good roster in there, man.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like he's such a top candidate out there right now. And I have absolutely loved what the Colts have been doing over there in Indianapolis. So to get a guy like that, who I think could genuinely step in and feel so comfortable in an organization like this and just be backed by the right type of people as far as ownership and those in the front office that are sticking around. I don't think there's going to be a better position for him as far as like come in and immediately make your presence known.
I just want to bring up one thing for Ed Dobbs. The Colts have actually these past couple of years they've built one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and I know Vikings fans have really been at the team's neck about just like, hey, can we get an offensive lineman? Can we fix this offensive line? Can we fix this offensive line? And it's like this guy was a part of a team that didn't have a great offensive line, and they built it into probably a top 5 group in the NFL. So I think he could maybe fix our offensive line right now because our interior is not looking too great, So hopefully he's got some sort of like magic in that regards. Maybe that'd be kind of nice.
I think you are spot on about a really fantastic positive that comes with a guy from that staff, a guy who's probably overseen a lot of the scouting of those guys that are coming to Indianapolis through these drafts. I really, truly think to the Indianapolis Colts, and the only thing that may or may not around the league be a blemish on his resume is the chance that he signed off in some way, shape, or form on the Carson Wentz trade, which I don't even think is that bad of a deal because Philadelphia was gonna move Carson Wentz no matter what. It's not like somebody was going to take Carson Wentz. And I think Indianapolis was probably the best place that he could have gone with Frank Reich being there.
I agree with that. And come on, give the man some slack. If I didn't know Carson Wentz was going to absolutely sell this last game against Jacksonville, let's be honest.
Also fantastic. Yeah, that was.
I mean, that was just you can't even no. Yeah.
Yeah. Jokes don't write themselves as good as that actually turned out in real life. pretty insane. But then the other guy that quite honestly tops my board would be Mike Bergonzi. He is the Chiefs' assistant general manager.
Okay.
I mean, what do I have to say aside from his title? The Chiefs have drafted some of the better classes and brought in some of the better free agencies in the league for the last several years now. And they have also made fantastic moves as far as knowing when to acquire players from other teams and move players to other teams. So I absolutely love the idea of getting him in here. I think that he would be amazing wearing a Norseman on his lapel. So yeah, that's a guy that I would absolutely run through a brick wall to get in our front office here. And I also just really like the fact that if we bring him in, we get a true opinion on the Eric Bieniemy situation so that people can stop bringing too much to that conversation. I think people are giving Eric Bieniemy a bit too much credit. I still believe there's a reason that he failed all of the head coaching interviews last year. For all I know, maybe he finally was let in by Andy Reid and was given the secret this year, but the dude doesn't call the offensive plays in Kansas City. And I think a majority of that offense's ingenuity still comes from Andy Reid. So if you get a guy like Bergonzi in the front office helping to make that head coach move, then at least I would feel like way more comfortable as somebody who has been against the Bieniemy deal. If they brought him in, I would be like, oh, okay. Because this guy knows whether or not he actually knows what's going on with that offense. So, and then if they don't bring him in, then it's like a confirmation for me that he's not ready to be a head coach yet. So, that's just a plus, though. I think there's a lot more that goes into this hire that I would really like to see from what he can do. So, not to mention knowing when to trade quarterbacks in order to bring in a younger quarterback that you can actually build around.
Oh, man. Yeah, being on the same page. Being on the same page, actually, is what you're... Yeah.
Right, exactly. Hint to maybe something that we'll probably have a full episode on at some point this offseason, I'm sure, if that news doesn't somehow happen much faster than I'm assuming it will. So with that, let's move on to the head coach. And, if at least I know I have a couple ideas as far as coordinators go. If you don't want to get into the weeds that far or haven't maybe thought up that kind of stuff, then don't feel obligated, Tyler. But I know of about at least two guys I'd like to see at those respective positions. And then obviously some guys for head coach that I'd like to see in purple and gold. So, but I'll throw it back to you. Who do you want to see take over for Mike Zimmer?
You want me to start? I mean,
I'm throwing it to you, man. Go for it.
All right. Honestly, my number one favorite's probably Brian DeBoer from Buffalo. I love me some of that Buffalo offense. What he did with Josh Allen coming in his rookie year. I don't think people realize this. Like, Josh Allen was one of the most raw. Yes, he was a first-round pick, but he was so raw coming out of Wyoming. Like, obviously, the level of competition he played was not there. He had a really good arm coming out of college, but his fundamentals and accuracy was not there at all. He wasn't able to really lead that offense either coming in right away. You could just tell. He has the height. He's got speed. I think the Anthony Barr play is kind of what set that guy's career off, maybe, the hurdle. But what Brian DeBoer was able to do with Josh Allen, it's insane in that entire offense. Coming in 2018, he basically changed that offense around, and now they're a powerhouse in the NFL. Buffalo is one of the most explosive offenses in this league. Allen is just the guy's a leader now. He's completely flipped the script with that Buffalo team, and it's so impressive. And that's just what I want to see with the Vikings. I think the Vikings have the pieces there, and they haven't been utilized to their strengths in the last 3 years. Mike Zimmer has been selfish, and he's been telling his coordinators to basically, you know what, you got to stick to the run. You got to stick to the run. When you don't have to, when you have these guys on offense, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Adam Thielen, you have Irv Smith Jr. when he's on the field, you have KJ Osborne, you have Dalvin Cook. It's like, if you have these weapons, take shots down the field. There's never a time to not be aggressive with that amount of talents on your offense. And I think Brian DeBoll can take advantage of that with this offense. And I think this offense needs a completely new scheme than what we've had in the last 3 years with the Kubiaks, because that mess, I haven't liked this Kubiak scheme. It's just so conservative. And I think DeBoll can really change the narrative on this offense, because on paper, this offense is top 3. And I think it can be that realistically with Brian DeBoll at the helm. I think he can really flip the script with this offense.
Yeah, man. I mean, you already know this. I'm right alongside you. DeBoll is my number one guy as well. Another guy that I would potentially go for if I was the Vikings, or I should say, honestly, 2 guys that are tied for me right now. Is the offensive coordinator over there in Tampa, Byron Leftwich. I think that even if he is similar to Bieniemy in that offense runs through Bruce Arians, and he's not nearly as proficient with being like this offensive guru mind, I think that Leftwich checks that leader of men box.
Yep.
A lot of people. I think that he'd be a really great, relatable coach that guys would really want to run through a brick wall for. And then I think from there, so long as you get a young guy or somebody kind of up and coming as your offensive coordinator, then it doesn't really matter, I look at like a guy like a Keenan McCardell and trying to give him a look at offensive coordinator, a guy who this Vikings team has seen as a wide receivers coach now for this year. And a lot of guys within the organization on this team love him. And then go for like a Vic Fangio at defensive coordinator. If you can somehow swing that, he doesn't get a head coach gig somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't see Fangio getting enough a head coaching job, to be honest with you.
No, I don't either.
I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I think he's a really good defense.
I think he's a fantastic defensive coordinator.
I think he's going to be a look for a lot of teams in that regards.
Absolutely. Coordinator. Yes. You need to move fast probably to get a grip on that. But so the guy that's tied with Leftwich as far as the head coaching gig is the shocker today of the Miami Dolphins.
Brian
Flores, yes.
Yeah.
Brian Flores would be an insanely awesome head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. Yet again, another guy that I think would win over this locker room in a heartbeat. Yes, he's defensive minded, but the dude is not afraid to look at offensive weapons and care about the offensive side of the ball. It's very obvious to me with what they tried to do in Miami and how he apparently has really been on this Deshaun Watson train if everything with him clears up. Not saying that I want him in purple and gold, but I think that there's something to be said about that. Whereas Zimmer wouldn't really care about the quarterback so long as his name wasn't Teddy Bridgewater, So those guys are definitely tied for me. And then one other offensive-minded guy that I've definitely been looking at is Nathaniel Hackett out of Green Bay.
Hey, did I convince you on that? What's going on there? You weren't on the Hackett train about a week ago.
What's going on? Yeah, so I started to kind of look at it, and I think that Rodgers and Adams definitely do a lot for that team. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that they seemingly are consistently finding talent around these guys, you look at like their running back room the past however many years, they've had quite a few solid names come through there. They've had some pretty great offensive linemen in that organization over the past few years. So they've had some solid wide receivers working in there. He's had a look at Aaron Rodgers and kind of like getting an idea of what works well in this very pass forward NFL with a quarterback like that. So I think it comes down to the interview with a guy like him,
Yeah,
as far as how he's going to tailor that to this offense and these players, kind of how can he prove that that's not just the guys that he has in Green Bay. But I'll say this. I think the thing that really swung me on Nathaniel Hackett was that I would so much rather have him than I would Kellen Moore. Because Kellen Moore is the naive, young, very obviously carried by the weapons on his offense version of Nathaniel Hackett that we don't know for sure if he is or isn't. Nathaniel Hackett, at the very least, seems somewhat proven to me as a coach, like he could actually handle himself. He actually has some fire and some energy to him and seems like a guy that a team would really be able to get behind. As far as Kellen Moore, it really just seems like he's flying by the seat of his pants, that he's letting Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Tony Pollard, and Ezekiel Elliott and that amazing offensive line just basically carry him into whatever team is stupid enough to hire him this early in his career. I think it would be a big mistake for the Vikings if it came down to those two guys to not go with Nathaniel Hackett over Kellen Moore.
That's exactly what I thought. That exact description about kind of like the LSU team with Joe Brady and Ed Orgeron. I mean, that team was way too talented. I mean, that's why Joe Brady didn't pan out in the NFL. I mean, the dude had literally everything handed to him with a freaking most overpowered college team you'll ever see in the history of college football. So, but the thing I like about Hackett is the experience to him as well. He's been in this league for a while. He's been the offensive coordinator for the Bills and Jaguars. He has prior experience. It's not like Kellen Moore where he's 33 years old and he basically just came out of the NFL. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
He's been in multiple spots. He's been in this league for a while. He's kind of moved up the totem pole now. And I think you give this guy an interview. I think you give him a chance, like you said, to prove himself. I think you give him a chance to prove himself, and you see what he has. So,
I also honestly wouldn't mind, if we're just throwing out names at the very least for guys to get an interview. One name that I will say really quick because I think it's important: Jim Harbaugh. I wouldn't mind giving him an interview at least if he agreed for an interview. Hiring him, depending on how many guys you have, like a final offer that you're able to give out to. I don't know about all that, but I think Jim Harbaugh is at least worth checking in with and seeing if he'll sit down for an interview.
That's what I feel like about with my third guy, wild card. Like my top two is DeBoll and Flores, and then kind of a wild card for me was Josh McDaniels. I think that I love that scheme that they run, though. They mix the pass and the run so well. They run a lot of jet sweep motions. They move guys around the field. They can really confuse a defense. And the game plans that he comes up with is phenomenal. I love me some of that New England Patriots game plan. They're making Mac Jones look like a phenomenal quarterback right now. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not a fan of Mac Jones coming out of Alabama, but I think he has really benefited from this scheme that Josh McDaniels is running in New England right now and the way that this team can execute with their game plan. He seems as if he can get guys on offense to fall on board with the plan and that he can get these players to execute it. And I think he can lead an offense. I'm saying you got to give him an interview. I know he had a terrible time his first time coaching in the NFL, but how many years ago was that?
Yeah.
The league's changed a lot since his first head coaching gig.
Yeah, I hear you. I just have such a bad taste
in your mouth from the Colts. Yeah, that's what everyone says.
I really can't stand how that situation went
down.
I think that that's really gross, and I think that that is something that deservingly should taint his ability to be a head coach in the NFL for years to come, if I'm being completely honest. Like, that's just how I feel. If he comes in and they request an interview and he takes it, he knocks off the Wilfs' socks and whoever else is within that organization on the committee as far as hiring this guy. And they put a freaking contract in front of him and tell him you're signing this now, and if you back out of it, you're gonna owe us like millions of dollars.
Well, I think if he backs out of another deal, his legacy, he's not. I mean, if he backs out of another like sort of like contract like that,
dude. Not if you stay with not if you stay with the Patriots. Not if you stay with Bill Belichick. Not if Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft are like, hey man, you want to go down to Minnesota and F around with them for a day or two and then come back here, and I promise you I'll give you the keys to this team when I retire. And Robert Kraft is probably like, yeah, I'll put it in my will that nobody can fire you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't see him. That's the only team that'll give him a chance. Then, I think the other teams around the league will cancel him if something like that happens again. And I think his only other chance of being like a head coach will be with the New England Patriots. I don't see another team even giving him a chance if something like that happens again. I say you give him an interview and see what happens. You don't have to hire him. I just want to see, because I love the scheme that they run. It's kind of, it's just such a balance, and I love it.
And I don't necessarily hate the idea of an interview. It's a really bad taste. It's a really bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So, well, man, with that, we've gone over these openings. We've given the people some food for thought. Now as these weeks move on and names are thrown out there, even if they're different names, the people that listen to Vikes with the Mic, as always, are going to have a better handle on this situation and their favorite team, how they are moving forward in this new era of Minnesota Vikings football. So with that, the playoffs are upon us again. As far as I'm concerned, unless Tyler comes onto my computer or steals a bunch of different information and passwords in order to upload some episodes, I believe we will not be back until God knows when. The Vikings got to.
Honestly, who knows? I really hope they can get this GM thing figured out real quick so that we can get into the head coaching thing as soon as possible. They need to take care of this. They need to get on the hammer with this GM thing, and then as soon as that happens, they can get right on track of finding this head coach that can lead this team to a freaking Super Bowl, man.
100%.
It's time.
Yeah, it is. It's beyond time. It's way past.
Yeah.
It needs to have happened yesterday. So we will be back when there's something worth talking about. Don't get me wrong, and we will be back quickly. Because the fire is real under Tyler and myself right now. It is legit, and we are excited about it. So with that, we'll see you when we see you. Thank you, as always, for listening to Vikes with Mike. We are so excited about this new era. Make sure that you support the podcast in any way, shape, or form as humanly possible. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, like, comment, subscribe, engage with us because we love engaging with you guys. And take a look at our website. Watch all of our previous episodes. You don't want to go into this offseason not understanding the story of 2021, people. It's going to have such an impact on what happens.
You've got to tune into what happened this past season, man.
Yes, absolutely.
The ups and the downs. They were there.
You got to know where this team is at in order to know where they're going to go. So important stuff. Make sure you check out all those episodes. We're so excited. I genuinely can't get over how excited I am to record this episode, because it means that we're going to have some really fun stuff to say. So we will see you then. Until then, go Raiders. Cincinnati sucks.
Nope. No. Houday Nation in the jungle. You know it. Bengals win the Super Bowl. Nope. Bengals are taking the Super Bowl.
Raider Nation going to win the Super Bowl. We love you all. We'll see you next time. Cannot wait, as always. Skol.